Have you been wondering, how do you get your spouse on the same page with you? Would you love it if they would actually listen to you? Well, coming from a married guy, I've got the secret for you. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti financial advisor. This show is for those of you that work so hard for your money and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you today. You want that freedom, you want the cash flow right now, not having to wait 30 or 40 years from now for it to maybe happen, but you want it today so you can live that life that you love with those that you love. But most importantly, you're not just here to get rich. You want to live a rich life because as you grow financially, as you are able to have more resource, you now have a greater capacity to bless the lives of those around you. Thank you for tuning in today, guys. I appreciate you guys always tuning in, especially as we've now gone on 11 years with this show. You guys are such a big part of that ripple effect. Thank you for allowing me to share that through you. Hey, if you'd like that ripple effect to keep going, all I'd ask you is just see if you'd share the show with one more person. Who is that one person that maybe in your life could be a friend, family member, whoever it might be? Who do you know that should be listening to this show as well or watching the show? Give them an invite. That would be so awesome. And for those of you that have been a long time faithful users and you already referred all your friends to us, feel free to give us a review as well or a little shout out. All right, so let's talk about our little topic today because we're going into Valentine's week, right? If you're watching this soon, if not, this might be Christmas time. I don't know, but anyways, we're going to Valentine's, and it kind of made me think about a question I often get because we get so many couples coming in, and we've worked with a lot of couples. I've personally worked with a lot of couples over the last almost 20 years now. It's been literally hundreds and hundreds of couples. Really, it's gone into the thousands, but it's been so many. And one thing that comes up time and time again, it's either the husband or it's the wife. It's one of the two. They say, Chris, I don't want you to tell them, but I would love to get my spouse on board. I would love for them to finally like listen to this stuff. Like maybe you're listening to the show, but they're like, I'm being a faithful listener to this show where, Chris, like I follow this, I get it. Like this stuff makes sense to me, but not them. Like they have this big security gland. They don't like to take big risks. They don't like to do anything new. They don't want to try anything new, or even worse, because my past, because I've made mistakes, because I've lost money or I've had bad business failures or things like that, they don't trust me anymore. And maybe you relate to some part of this. Maybe it's not as extreme as them saying they don't trust you anymore, but maybe you're thinking, man, how do I get them to actually like really let we're both on board, full steam ahead. We get it. We have a perspective. It makes sense. Let's go. Hey, that's what I want to talk about in this show right now because it's so common and it's so essential because the truth is I really want couples to be on the same page, right? Because think about this. If you were gone, let's just say that you were the only one doing it. You were directing all the money and maybe your spouse even really enables you to do so and really just relegates it. They don't even delegate it to you. They relegate it because they're like, I'm not good with numbers or I just don't get this money stuff. You deal with it all. What happens if you're no longer around? What happens if you're gone? Heaven forbid that you were to pass away or something were to happen. What are they going to do? And I've witnessed this happen. I actually have a client where her husband was managing all this stuff, got thrown on her lap. She was left with two teenage daughters. Some of them like literally like going out for the Olympic team, right? Like they're like in sports. They're heavily in sports. They're always traveling. She's dealing with the loss of her husband. They're dealing with the loss of their dad. She's trying to console them and be a single mom, also a single like super duper like soccer mom in a sense, right? Like she's trying to do everything and yet she can't do it at all. And then of course you got all these investments and all these different things, that she doesn't even understand what's going on because she was left out of the loop. Now he wasn't a bad guy. I'll tell you this much. I mean, like losing him was definitely a sad day. But what was hard was that for her, like it was just too much, right? She was already on overload. She was already up to here. Throwing on one, just throwing on that little extra straw is just what literally breaks the camel's back, right? So for her, it was about just how do we make this easy? Now there's a whole thing about organization, and if you have a safe or things like that or a file, maybe places for passwords, that'd be great. But that's more thinking later, right? I know you're wanting the here and now, but I'm just throwing that as an extra bonus for you that you want to make sure that you do get each other on the same page so that if anything were to happen to you, if you're the one that's mainly driving the finances, they're not going to be left left alone. They're not going to feel lost and afraid, right? You want to make sure that they're there with you. And so if you can, walk side by side. Now you're saying like, well, how do I get on the same page with me about the investing? The first question I'm going to ask you is, who's to say you know best? Who's to say that you actually do know the best? Even if you're following the show, and I know you're getting some good stuff, but what if your perspective isn't the best way to go about it? What if your spouse's perspective, your partner's perspective is actually better? What about then? The one thing that's dangerous here is that if you assume that you are right, if you assume that you know best, and maybe there are some good things, of course, that you do know, don't assume that they don't know great things as well. In my experience working with hundreds and hundreds of couples, often there's usually one spouse that might be more aggressive, a little bit more riskier, and one that's a little bit more conservative, likes to take less risk. At the same time, I also get someone who might be more intellectual, might be the person that's studying this stuff, but the other spouse might be more street smart. They might be a little bit more wise or intuitive, and they kind of sense things that even though they don't understand everything going on, they can sense when something's off. And so you need both. Both of you, especially if you complement each other anyways, this can become a power situation for you. Because imagine if you could actually be working on the same page, but it doesn't mean that your spouse just goes along with you, but instead you're working as a partnership where yes, you know where it's going, but then they throw in their extra 2 cents. And it might just be asking the right questions. It might be asking questions you never considered. Maybe it just gets you being more clear on, yeah, do I really understand this investment? So don't assume that you know best. Even if you might know more about a certain subject, be sure to walk into this as a partnership. All right, second thing, if you want to get a spouse or a partner on board, this is essential. Instead of worrying about how to get on the same page and teach them everything, do this. Ask them, what do you want? What do you want? What does the ideal life look like for you? What does that freedom look like for you? Like, why would you want financial freedom? Why do you want it? Ask them the why question. Ask them about them and what they really want here. It's interesting because most of the time, couples don't fully know what they want. Often they know what they don't want, but they don't know what they actually want. And it's okay to know what you don't want because that helps you narrow down to what it is you do want. But at some point, you have to know what you want because if you keep focusing on what you don't want, you'll often keep getting what you don't want. Right? It's that law of attention. Wherever you put your attention towards will expand and grow. Right? So just be aware of that. But understand that most people don't really have a clear picture of what they want, and that's why they never really get anything in the first place. They get life, but usually whatever they if you're not clear, it just doesn't work. It's kind of like Mark Twain said. He's like, I can help anybody in the world get what they want. I just can't find anybody who knows what they want. So know what you want and understand what your partner or your spouse wants too. What do they want? What's really the thing that would motivate them? Because you might think they don't care about the money stuff that much, but it might just be that they don't have a big enough why to care. Because if you're able to find out exactly what they want and be able to show them, hey, look, this actually works, right? This actually works here. Here's how we can get you what you want. That might be a little bit more bought in. And so it's like Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why. Start with why. Why do you want it? And even ask yourself the same thing. Why do I want that? If you say you want passive income or financial freedom, why? What is your plan to do with that freedom? What are you actually going to do with it? Right? Why do you want it? What is it you think that money will give you? I can assure you, people find out one way or the other, it's not the money they want, it's whatever they think the money will give them. That's what they want. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. So go past the money, look beyond the money, and find out what is it you want, right? Isn't that romantic, right? Talking about money is so romantic. By the way, that's why I've got all the red back here too, just for you guys for this Valentine's Day. So, anyways, so understand what is it you want, right? Like you want, and then what does he or she, your partner or spouse want? Get clear on that, and then see, let's see if these goals actually do align with that. Maybe what your spouse wants has nothing to do with the money. Maybe the money will do nothing more. Maybe you can already give your spouse that what they already want in the first place. And maybe too, remember, this is also a good conversation for having fears and other things pop out, right? Because that's what usually happens when you try to talk about what you want. Sometimes you start talking about what you don't want and the fears. Go into those fears, dig in. I had one couple that was out of Idaho, and it was fascinating because the husband was all on board. He was ready to go. He felt like his wife was holding him back. As we started to dig in, what we found out is that it wasn't about the money for her. What it actually was about was the fact that he was a business owner and she was still, her nervous system, she had this trauma from her own father, who was an entrepreneur. He was a business owner, but he bounced around a lot, right? He wasn't like a good business owner. He was one that was more of a gambler in business. He was a dreamer, but not so much a doer. And so I kid you not, they actually filed, while she was a child, they filed for bankruptcy 3 times. They lost money 3 times while her dad was a business owner. Isn't it interesting that she ends up marrying, a chiropractor who's in business for himself? And yeah, he has a very successful business, but she is scared to death. It doesn't matter how much money he will bring in, she will never feel free until we start addressing what's really behind that. What's really scaring her, right? What it is. And for her, it was just that trauma, like that trauma feeling like at any moment the shoe could drop. At any moment, her husband's business can go under, right? Now, did we start addressing things in our finances to help her feel better? Yes, we did. Building up a bigger savings account to say, listen, like, did your dad have this? No. Well, if he did have that savings, do you think you would have had a different experience? Do you think you would have a different experience if he had that savings? And now you start to dig into something deeper, right? Ooh, look, now it's like it's about having a certain amount of savings. Now it's not the number again, right? It's just the mere fact of what can this allow you to do. It also meant focusing on cash flow and getting their cash flow under control so that they knew they had extra every single month. So even while he's working, they still can keep building and growing their savings. And naturally, of course, as they build and grow that savings, guess what? What can we do to get that money to work for them to generate more income so that if anything does happen to his business, they're fine? Because the truth is, even though he's a business owner, he controls it, he's his own boss, he is still in his own rat race. He is still stuck to that career until he can find another income source to break free of it. And that's why you want multiple streams of passive income. And that's what we started to work on to help really not just give him what he wanted, but also give her the security and the feeling of comfort. And when I say comfort, I don't mean like the comforts of life. I mean just for her to be able to relax and breathe. And yes, there's a lot more work that she would need to do beyond just the money. The money, again, doesn't solve it. There's often you might have to get therapy and things like that to help transcend beyond some of those fears and those beliefs. But isn't it a good start? Because now you can actually start addressing some of the actual physical realities of your situation to then address the very things that she wanted. She didn't care much about passive income. She just needed to feel safe. She needed to feel secure. And the cool thing is you can have it all because she can become safe and secure when you get that base foundation of finances in place and then help him also feel more secure because he knows the fear in his back of his mind of his business is the fact that he knows he has to keep working that business day in, day out. If he doesn't show up, he doesn't get paid. And that wears on him because then he feels like he can never stop. He can't fully engage with his family. He can't fully be able to take that time off of his kids because it's always, every time he's with his kids, he knows they're not getting paid and he can't provide for his family. So be able to break free of that, be able to transcend beyond that. So then he can know, okay, I've got income coming in. I don't always have to go to work. I don't always have to show up. That is the key. So again, find out what they really want, right? What does your partner really want? Dig into that. So again, reviewing this situation is one, don't assume you're always right. Make sure that you are a partnership in this. Two, find out what each of you want. Notice this is, again, a partnership thing. This is something that requires a lot of discussion. Notice no financial strategy, right? It's not. And then the third and final thing, and this is the thing I've seen work the best, and you've probably already noticed this. If you haven't already seen this true in your own life, you've probably noticed it true in other aspects, is that you don't have to do it alone. You remember I mentioned at the beginning where, with that wife, the widow, right, where she was widowed, She was completely lost. The thing that was awesome is that, one, she didn't even know I existed. I mean, she did, but she didn't. She didn't know how to get a hold of me. The good news is that I actually sent her a little like consolation gift. And then I sent another email to her because, there was like, insurance premiums and stuff on their daughters that had to be paid. And so after reaching out, she finally reached back out and said, I need your help. I'm desperate. Right. And so I've been able to help walk her through, help her, especially because she's just so emotionally full. I was like, hey, what do we got to do to make this as easy as possible? Even if I have to fill out every aspect of the form other than your signature, pretty much, right? There, you just do that, give it to me, we'll take care of it. And that's where it helps to have somebody on your team with you. It also helps to have kind of like that mediator, right? Sometimes it can be the spokesperson. Do you know how many times I've had spouses, we've had couples that we worked with that they'll message myself or our coach privately and say, "Hey, can you help my spouse with this? Can you help my spouse like get into this more abundant mindset? I feel like they're stuck. Can you help my spouse because they have a really hard time saving money? Can you help my spouse with their spending problem? Can you help my spouse with this or with that? Can you help them with this? Because they won't get it from me. Because the truth is this, and you already know this to be true, you're not a prophet in your own land. They might listen to you a little bit, right? And I do invite you and everybody to be open that way. But the truth is, how many times, and you know this already, how many times have you have you tried to say something to your spouse, right? Try to tell them something and it never quite sinks in. And then all of a sudden they hear it from somebody else. It might have even been listening to my podcast. They hear it from me. And then they're like, then they say, oh, I heard Chris say this and it just blew my mind. And you're like, hello, I've been telling you that for years, right? Not Chris, me. I've done it, right? Or they hear something on TV or on Instagram or Facebook, and they're like, "Yeah, I just learned this on another podcast." You're like, "I've been saying that. Why didn't you listen to me?" I'll tell you, I just got back from a trip just before recording this, right? And I was in like a little hot seat, as they call it, right, where you're surrounded by like these high level business owners. So, like these guys were making like anywhere from like 5 million to 100 million plus. Some of them even sold businesses for $1 billion plus, right? High level type of group. And so I'm sitting in the seat where these people are firing questions at me and looking, trying to look at my blind spots and see what things I need to overcome, right? And so I come back, and what's the first thing my wife says when I said, "Yeah, I had that hot seat?" She's like, "Great. What did they tell you that I've told you for years?" And you know who that is. It might be you, it might be your spouse in this all the time. But how often have you run into that situation where your spouse doesn't really quite get it from you, but somebody else says it and then it sticks? This is why it helps have that third party, that person that can kind of come in the middle with you, partner together with you, bring you together. That's one of the easiest ways to get that glue. You can try to do it yourself, but you might realize over time that it's sometimes hard to do that. Sometimes a different voice is nothing against you. It's just a different voice can come across in a different way. Maybe it's communicated and use the different words. And just so you know, this happens to me all the time. There's many times that my clients, I've taught them things and then they hear it from another source. Like somebody comes on and speaks at one of our mastermind events, or somebody comes on my podcast. They say, "Oh, this person said this," and it just sunk in. It wasn't that I hadn't said it before, but maybe that guest or that person said something just a little bit different that it finally sunk in. Maybe they're just in the right place at that moment that it finally sunk in. This is why it helps to have somebody that does do that. This is why the podcast can actually be a great way to do it. So many people will ask me, clients will ask me, like, what's the best way to introduce people to you? Podcast. To have them listen to Money Ripples podcast because they're going to find out one of a few things. Either one, they're going to like me, or two, they're going to say that guy's full of crap, right? Either way, I'm fine, because I know it works. I know it works, but remember, you can use this show as that sort of thing. For those of you that might be in a place where you actually do have some things to do financially, like maybe you do have a situation where you can improve your cash flow significantly. Maybe we should be working with you one on one. Maybe we should be giving you a coach to kind of help get you guys on that same page. Again, we always encourage our people to work together. They don't have to, but it sure helps when you do have the spouse involved too. So again, find that third voice, right? The one beyond yourselves. And that's for either direction. They might need to communicate something to you. I'll tell you, I usually get the spouse that will say, please teach my spouse this, like get them on the same page as what we're thinking. But many times their spouse will say, yes, but he needs to get this. He needs to understand this. And I'll have to come back and say, you're both right. You both need this. You're both right in this regard, and you both need to understand this too. This is why we teach about the difference between spender, saver, and steward. Very often, I get a couple that will be one will be the spender, one will be the saver, and that creates the most conflict. The thing I have to do is help them come in the middle because remember the stewardship mentality, which is the only one in abundance, because spenders in scarcity, saver in scarcity. The middle of abundance is the steward mentality. How do you get the spender to be a little bit wiser with their money to where it actually comes back to them again, right? But how do you also get the saver to let go of the money and use it in a way that also generates money now, right? And by the way, don't tell me for 1 second that you're like, yeah, I don't know if I should do this or I should do that. I should really talk to my spouse. You know, I've seen so many couples, even like when they talk to us, they're like, okay, this sounds good. Let me talk to my spouse. And we encourage it, right? We encourage it every time. But many, many times I'll say, why don't you talk to him now? And by the way, did you talk to him about every financial decision you've made? Did you talk to him before you start putting money in that 401k that literally takes money away from the family? Did you talk to him about that? Or did you just went and did it and maybe let them know you have a 401k, but you're not even telling them how much you're putting away into it, or maybe you set a percentage, but they don't even know what that means in dollars, right? They just know you're putting money away for someday retirement while your family gets no benefit today. That's one thing I love about passive income. What we do is because the spouses usually get on board with us more because they say, wait, are you saying that we'll actually see a benefit from it before 40 years? Yeah. You can actually use that money instead of locking away in a 401k, you get a negative 100% return because that money's gone out of your life and then it generates zero income. It just takes money out of your budget. You never even see that money come home. It's just gone, right? Here, it's like, no, you actually invest that money and it comes back and it comes back today, not in 30 or 40 years from now, but right now, right? Just like we talked about in the show, it comes back now. That's so much more of a fun conversation. And so sometimes I get that saver, that scarcity saver person. It's like, oh, I want to do better with my money. And that's good. You want to do better with your money. But remember that the spouse also looking at saying, yeah, but you keep trying to do good things with the money, but we never see those good things. Our family doesn't ever benefit from you doing these good things. What could you be doing now? Right. So just understand that sometimes having that third party can get you guys together in ways that you never expected because it gets the other person to feel like they have a voice. And I'll tell you, the voice that often needs to be heard is the one that's speaking the least, the one that's just going along with it, that's just going along with you, just going along for the ride, right? You don't want that. You want them to have a voice. You want them to come in and you want them to learn how to do it together so you guys become this power couple, this team that can actually work through these things together, not just rely on some third party to tell you what to do, like some crappy financial advisor. No, but actually to empower you, educate you, get to the point where you can actually work together hand in hand. That's something I'll tell you. Like my wife is a brilliant woman. Sometimes I forget she doesn't even understand some of the investments we talk about on the show all the time because she's not always listening to the show. There's new things coming out all the time. But I'll tell you this, she is amazingly brilliant to sniff out when things don't feel right. Even if I think it could be awesome, and I've got that intuitive power too, but she's even got a bigger power than I have. Use it, right? That's why we've done so well with our investing, in my opinion, is that yeah, I've gotten into things and I'm willing to go in fast. She slows me down. She's like, okay, Chris, let's pause. Explain this to me. And so she makes me have to teach it. And by the way, she has like this much attention. She's like totally ADHD. If you guys are married to a person like this, have a partner like that, but it's a really big challenge to say, how can I condense this and get it as quick as possible? You think a 20-minute podcast is long. For her, she's like, after 2 minutes, she's like, Chris, I didn't want a podcast. I want to know what's going on. Right. So anyways, it's good to be able to do that and try to work together so then you can work on the same page. And it's not just about getting your way. Stop thinking it that way. It's about how can you guys empower each other and even create a legacy for your children to follow too, so that you can empower them. And this can carry on generation after generation, not just with your little life, but beyond you, that can create something where you can even create and empower more intelligent, more well-informed kids that will have greater start to their lives, that will have better really better status in society and in life, better access to things that they'll need to have that richer life, that life that gives them that freedom, that life that gives them health and wellness and everything else that comes with having that financial prosperity. They can have it too. But it first requires you to get on the same page. Naturally, you ever want help with that, always reach out to us at moneyripples.com. But I just challenge you guys to do this. One, don't assume you're right. Two, make sure that you find out what each of you want. And then three, then look for ways to get someone to bring you together. Even if it's a friend or a good mentor, find somebody to help you guys interpret each other, so to speak, right? Or at least get on that same page. So much faster that way. Guys, let me know how we can best serve you. Any questions you have, you can always reach out to us at moneyripples.com. Make it a wonderful and prosperous week. We'll see you later.